Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Frame by Frame, Voices of Cinema. I'm your host, Gerald Pagdato, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Our podcast aims to celebrate the creativity and perseverance of indie filmmakers, highlighting their unique journeys and challenges. Today, I am excited to welcome Dianne Wulf, a talented director, writer, and actor whose career spans over continents. Dianne's work not only focuses on storytelling, but also bringing much needed diversity and representation to the screen. She's been part of the TIFF delegates, worked on major projects, and has several exciting new ventures in development. In this episode, we'll explore Dianne's journey in the industry, her thoughts on representation, and challenges and triumphs of being a minority in filmmaking. So whether you're a filmmaker, a film enthusiast, you will want to hear these things. So sit back, relax, and join us as we go frame by frame with Dianne Wulf on Frame by Frame, Voices of Cinema. Dianne, thank you so much for sitting down with us today and really excited to really explore and dig down deeper on who Dianne Wulf is and your experiences and your insights into the industry.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk about all these things, our industry that we share.
Awesome. Let's start off with who is Dianne Wulf and kind of maybe a little bit of your background and upbringing.
So I actually started, how I got into the industry is I was discovered by an anime channel in Asia. So I used to cosplay, so, kind of like dressing up as game and anime characters. I would make my own costumes, and I was attending one of the conventions. I won, and it was a subsidiary of ABS-CBN, which is one of the bigger conglomerates there. It's called Hero TV. And they're like, oh yeah, do you want to host an anime channel? It's kind of new. And I'm like, yeah, why not? So that's kind of my first time being thrown in front of the camera. I really loved it, but what I fell in love with was the behind the scenes. I just loved watching them setting up the cameras, even in the editing room doing ADRs and such. So that's kind of where I got started. But here, though, once I wanted to do that, I guess I had to do the traditional things that my parents wanted me to do at first and try to pursue that before I kind of had the epiphany of, what? This is my life. It's so cliche, but it's like I only get one, and I would like to follow what I wanted to do. So I ventured out, got into film through production design. Because of my costume experience and, set design and such. And just when I started, meeting more people here locally is when I started gaining more confidence. Like, hey, I write too. Would you like to produce my script and turn it into a short? So that's kind of how it got started. And then finally, TELUS STORYHIVE, thankfully with their help of emerging creators like myself, I was able to apply there too and direct my first music video.
Music video?
Yeah, music video was the first one. So I kind of went from there. So production design to writing to directing. But, I suppose it kind of came naturally going back in front of the camera after that. The more I met people, they would also invite me to be, oh, hey, you want to be, a part of this project? And, we have such a small, tight-knit community here that, just all of these opportunities kind of came and opened doors, and I wanted to explore it all. So, that's me. That's how I got started.
No, that's very interesting and pretty inspiring, actually. So you started in production design, actually it's cosplay. So you started making your own costumes and attending these anime conventions or cosplay conventions. How did that influence you because you have to be creative, you're jumping into someone else's persona when you're creating your own costumes, because I do cosplay too as well too.
Oh, awesome.
And we volunteer at the convention here yearly. Me and Carla, right? Oh, actually,
so cool.
But Yeah, that's quite the transition from, making your own costumes to then being part of the industry and being a host in ABS-CBN, which is pretty huge back home. So how did you take that transition, and how did it affect you and kind of make you who you are today?
I think that, as far as I can remember, I think I wanted to be a writer, director, actor without even knowing what those were. Just thinking about it, I tried to get in Glee Club in school, but they rejected me, by the way. but it was almost always something in me that I wanted to perform and do that, but I didn't know. Even with my toys, like I would direct my toys, sort of lay them out and direct them, and not knowing it is what it is.
Yeah.
So with cosplaying and being that creative side of me, like you said, you get into a character too. So I feel like all these things are somewhat tied together, that it felt natural. It was almost like a natural progression. Yes, this was a design aspect, but it was also a performance aspect, as you would know, going up on stage, and just it all tied together for me.
Was it, at any point, did you find it intimidating through that process or that transition?
Absolutely, because I think it's the imposter syndrome that still pops up every now and then, just questioning myself, oh, maybe, my parents were right. This is not the path for me and I'm wasting my time. But it's a matter of putting myself out there. And, I am very lucky that I met a lot of super supportive people in this industry, that it helped me, even though it was daunting to, start letting people read my first script. But the moment, I think it was the first one after it broke that, it was much easier. Not that it's easier now, the bigger the production, I still feel like I shrink back into my shell. It's just, I think, taking inspiration from everyone around me, and it is scary, but we just got to push forward. I think.
It's all good, all good. Now, I'm curious, do you remember your first script or your first writing piece? And if so, are you able to share it, or?
Yes. So I think the first one that I absolutely completed, because I have so many unfinished ones. Yeah. The first one that I completed was produced by Guerrilla Motion Pictures. They're local in Edmonton, and it was called Who Killed Mary Sue, and it's very much tied into my, I'd say, personal experiences, and it's got to do with it's a psychological thriller that goes around the topic of possibly generational trauma and all the mental stuff that's kind of quite taboo. I don't know, with the culture and such. So it was about that, and writing it felt. Writing it from top to bottom, it just flowed. Yeah. Pretty much. But seeing it come to life was something else. And that's where I kind of started tweaking and, learning as well that, what maybe looks good on paper doesn't quite translate on screen. Yeah.
And that's probably a big epiphany, especially when you start from writing a piece to actually seeing the finished product. And now you probably go back and you're like, well, if I adjusted my script this way, or I probably made the character, sound like this, or maybe more of a backstory. That is a huge learning experience from writing to actually seeing the finished piece. So in that process, has that experience changed how you write in the future or write in your other projects?
Mm-hmm, I'd say so. Even now, I'm still continuously kind of, reshaping and shaping my scripts. And the biggest thing is that I've learned is to always don't skip the outline, the fleshing out. Even though it's just a short, it helps so much that you flesh out everything. No matter how short it is, from a minute to 10 minutes or whatever, your characters, background for them, where you see it going, what they're internally thinking, questioning every action, even like, does this need to be here? Does it move the story forward? Things like that. So definitely still learning from mentors to this day. it's continuously evolving for sure.
So what kind of, when you're writing, and this is just from personal experience, because when I write, I have a bunch of unfinished stuff because I get distracted or I'm not interested in anymore. But what inspires you, and what inspires you to keep moving forward?
What inspires me? I think largely personal experiences, and those ideas that come to me at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's just suddenly there, and I gotta get up and type it in my notes on my iPhone. It's the everyday things. I feel like whenever I write something, I would love to relate to it, because otherwise, I'm sure there's things like fantastical stuff. I've written something that's a fantasy that I won't say I've experienced all of it, but there's that connect. And that's largely where all my inspiration come from is, there's this thing that happened to me, or, my family went through this, or my friend told me about this, and I want to write my friend's experience, which we did get that funded through TELUS as well. She wrote, it's called Culture Shock. And, it's about her experiences as a Nigerian Canadian. And I helped her flesh that out. And I just love writing things like that. It's, relatable and I'd say very relevant to people, like no matter what the theme is.
So when you're writing and during that entire process, are you looking at your own personal experiences and incorporating a lot of that stuff in? Or are you trying to, I guess, force the narrative, trying to think about what people want to see?
That is tough. I think at one point I was trying to write for what I think people would want. And I think that's harder than, trying to draw from your own experiences or even inspiration. Because for me, at least, as a creative, I feel like that's where I met my roadblock. Whenever I got in my head and started going, well, will people like this? Will people love this? To an extent, you should care, your target audience. I'm sure you've built pitch decks and stuff that we have to kind of get detailed with the audience target that we're trying to go for. So in that sense, what they would want. But I try not to write for them or for anyone in particular. I just trust that creative process, and there's going to be a lot of people like me who would relate to it organically.
Gotcha. And I think, so just even for me personally, I've been trying to get over that hump. And do I write for people, for what they want to see, or do I really want to just tell my own story and how I see it? And that's always been tearing at me inside. And I guess it's the same for everybody, because when you do invest into the script, into the production, even post, I'm already thinking about, well, every time I write something, well, that's a new location, ching ching, that's going to cost money. We got to do this. And so when you write, do you take that also into consideration budgetary wise, or do you just write the story and then figure it out later?
Figure it out later. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, being realistic as well. For example, if I know that we're trying to go for just the local grants and funding, and this is going to be most likely our cap, I would try to not go beyond that realm, because then, that's going to be hard rewriting everything afterwards. But I absolutely agree with what you said, that it is hard because you'd want your audience to enjoy whatever you're writing. So you kind of try to write for them. And I completely get that. But I think it's what would make you stand out is like your own voice. I get it too, with POC, and we don't get as much opportunities to tell stories. And even when we do, we feel like, this doesn't have the audience here because it's not typically what we see on mainstream. But I think that becomes the greatest strength, though, because it's not out there yet. And it's, not the usual that you see over and over recycled again, just given a different font and a different title. And so I think, write what you want, write whatever story you got to tell. I strongly believe in that. And I love backing projects like that. I just feel like that's what people need more of. And even if you look, you look at trailers of new movies coming out, go to the comment section, an overwhelming majority will say, we've seen this before. We want something new. Well, why is mainstream media just recycling stuff? And I feel like that's where indie comes in, and that's our strength.
That's pretty interesting. So you actually go to the comment section. And
I do.
You creep out the comment sections.
I do. I try not to get affected. But, it's research.
Yeah. It's almost like when I watch like Instagram reels and someone doing, I don't know, maybe eating something gross. And first thing I do is go to the comment section and see how they get torn up, right?
Yeah.
So Dianne, tell me, you've been acting in a bunch of projects, and how many projects have you directed?
Projects for TV, music videos, I would say upwards of 10, but yeah. I do corporate stuff too. I know it's the boring projects, but it's what's more abundant in Alberta, So I would count maybe a dozen upwards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how does acting and directing kind of affect your approach? Because, as an actor, it's a performance, right? And you take on a certain persona as opposed to directing. Like, do the two affect how you approach things? And if so, why?
I think to an extent, as a director, I would say I kind of get where the actors are coming from. They say there's a directing director and there's an actor's director. I feel like I'm more an actor's director because I understand. I don't want to be, it's very rare that I would say, okay, I would like this, emotion to come from you, and this is what I want to translate. I love seeing how it comes up organically, and rather than telling them and directing them, this is what I want from you, I would say, how do you feel when this character is thinking that? What is your character thinking? I feel like that's the difference. Like I've met, again, I've worked with various directors too. And personally, I prefer working with an actor's director because it feels more natural.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but then as an actor working with directors, I kind of get where they're coming from too. Again, people have different directing styles, and I try to be as flexible as possible. I mean, it's part of the job.
Yeah.
Right. But maybe I am also quicker to get what the director is wanting because I've been in their shoes. So maybe those tweaks here and there are easier.
So as an actor, you've worked with so many different directors that have different directing styles. Mm-hmm. Are you able to break that down and kind of maybe give us like maybe the top 5 acting or director types?
Mm-hmm. I would say one of the favorite ones I've worked with quite a bit is Dylan Pierce. He's from Northern Gateway here, and he does MOWs. I've done 2 with him, and he let me shadow direct him on 1.
Cool.
I love his approach. He's just super chill, and he talks to you, and I feel like sometimes again, it depends on the set too, because MOWs are generally more chill as opposed to a TV series. You're all there, and they just gotta yell out the instructions and directions to you, and you gotta do that in front of everyone. But I love how Dylan takes you aside and kind of just talks to you like, how about we try this? Because your character is feeling this way, and he kind of walks you through it. And I love that approach because then it gets you thinking too as an actor, like, okay, let's try it this way, going this way as my character. And so, yeah, I like that. It feels very supportive. Not that the others aren't, but just that. I love that approach. As opposed to, I would say, again, a TV series. It was for a big streamer, though, so I get why they're tighter on things. So we're there, and they're just yelling out stuff, either to me or the other actors on set. And we just kind of we don't have time to really reset and take it in.
Yeah. Do
it on the spot. So it feels like there's more pressure.
Yeah, I was going to say that must be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but then again, the flexibility of it, I suppose, as an actor, it's part of your job. You're supposed to do it in do it on the spot. Yeah.
No, it's all good. So you got the director type who's the more personal approach, and then the director that's kind of, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess it's really dependent on the type of production, the budget as well too, is probably a big factor, because of the size of crew. Can you maybe explain to us, what's it like to work on a smaller crew versus a big crew? A production set that has, I don't know, 20 plus people, because I'm pretty sure you've been part of it. Well, I know you have. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I love working on smaller crew because it's very personal and you get to meet everyone. I know everyone's there for work and, it's not to network, but I love feeling like everyone's there together to create and just support each other while you're there. And yeah, you get to know everyone, keep seeing the same familiar faces, as opposed to, again, a bigger set, you're in, you're out. And you only really get to talk to the director, the producer, maybe your co-actors, and then wardrobe, makeup, and that's it. And it's kind of, I know it's the nature of the business, but it's kind of sad. Like, I like meeting people. And sometimes you just don't get the chance to.
Yeah. No, it's all good. So when you're working on your own projects, how do you incorporate diversity into these things? And is that a thought in your head as you're working on your own projects?
Yeah, absolutely a conscious choice. It starts with my writing. When I already know which characters I know are going to be portrayed as, and it starts in the drawing board, really. And some people might disagree, saying that, oh, so you don't even want to write if it's not for BIPOC or such. But my answer to that is there's already enough writers writing for, non-diverse folks, and it doesn't hurt to elevate that. And we really, I'm going to keep saying this over and over, we really need more of that. So starting from the drawing board to the writing, I already know it's a conscious choice. This is what I want to do. I want this much diverse people on cast and crew, even, not just in front of the camera. And I just thinking, like you said, it's supposed to be us lifting each other up. And that's what I hope to be doing and continue doing.
When you write stories, because there's so many different types of stories you can go out there, all these different types of topics, do you think that all these stories have been told already? Like, how does someone come up with an original idea these days?
You know what they say, there's not a real super original idea. To us, perhaps, as we write it, it's what was this? One of my writing mentors say, it's hard when you write something and then suddenly you see it playing on a trailer and you're like, hey, that's my idea, because ideas are a dime a dozen. I think what makes it unique is your spin that you put on it. We were just talking about earlier, whatever you try to put on there, because again, there's so many stories, there's only so much, maybe the hero story, that maybe coming of age. So there's those typical, I guess, act structures that we can do with stories, but what makes it different is our own perspective that you can inject in it. So as far as originality, that will come from us as creators, like the own spin that you put on. My opinion. So it's just a matter of, I guess, writing, not for, again, whatever, how they say, oh, this is how structures are supposed to go, but you don't always have to follow that. And do your own spin, I suppose, on it.
So let's say, guy coming of age, teenager, and trying to find himself. What's an example of a spin?
I would say then maybe they're a werewolf, like growing up, and they're like, okay, how do I navigate this? So it's like, okay, I'm coming of age, but the juxtaposition of a real life that was been done already versus, oh, hey, this is, it's a mythological creature, like a fictional creature that we've never seen before. Like, how does a werewolf like grow up? And like, how do they even go through all that changes and deal with friends and things like that? And I feel like there's so many twists that you can do. And
Gotcha.
yeah, just werewolf was the first. I don't know why werewolf is the first thing that popped in my head. But yeah, something like that.
No, it's all good. Yeah. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. Like when I try to write, I'm just like, man, this story's been done again. And how do I put my own spin to it? And I'm just like, your werewolf example, that's kind of, well, it's not extreme. I'm pretty sure it's been done already, right? But I'm like, well, how do I make it different? And how do I tell that story? And maybe it's just me getting in my own head as a writer. But, well, there's a question. You're a writer. How do you get out of your own head? Like, how do you break that? Because one of your mantras is, don't just talk about writing, just write. Mm-hmm. And so how do you just write and stopping your road bumps, getting over your own road bumps and blocks?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, being in our heads, hey?
Yeah.
But see, that mantra even came from one of my favorite directors is Guillermo del Toro. He says, don't say, I want to write, just write. Don't say, I want to direct, just direct. And honestly, I live by that. I go back to that every time I have this imposter syndrome. But again, being in your own head, how do you even get out of it? How I do it, at least, I journal a lot. And then I think expressing yourself as a character, going in your character's shoes, I feel helps me expand the world, because then now I'm writing as someone, and now it's not me overthinking things. And I'm going to say, okay, now suddenly I'm this character from this made up place, and these are the conditions. And so how do I think? What do I do? And I feel that helps a lot just by fleshing it out more. Because like I said, you're not stuck as you. But you mentioned like overthinking, for example, maybe this has been done before. But let's see, what example can I give? I'm not going to talk in great depth about it, but one of the features that we are kind of developing right now is, about generational trauma. It's been done before, but then we go, okay, let's do horror. I mean, generational trauma with horror genre has been done before, but what is it that I can inject into it? And as I was writing that, I go back to my own roots and, things that my grandma has told me, stories that my aunties have told me. And I go, oh my gosh, you know what? They've talked about the aswang. Are you guys familiar with that? The creature in the Philippine lore, the aswang. So what they are these kind of like vampire creatures, not quite, but creatures of the night. But in fact, it can get passed down. So it's able to get passed down from either the family or whoever you pass it down to. So with that's how I turned it and connected it with, the generational trauma thing, that it's something that's passed through cultures that we might want to get rid of. But, the monster is always there, almost like we're part of it.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to break free from that. So that's kind of how I developed that feature that I just finished writing the first draft. So then the hardest part too is, I do try to search sometimes, like, if some certain keywords, maybe to see if it's been done. I just don't want to look too much into it because I don't want to be influenced as well. But just as, okay, I know that something as specific as that hasn't been done, then okay, I have a go ahead, because again, if someone eventually does do that, again, I have my own spin and how I wrote it, how the characters are going to be, so it's still going to be.
Can you walk us through and explain to the viewers kind of, and everybody's different, your process of writing and how you start from generating ideas to putting it down on paper? I know you spoke earlier, hey, start with an outline, right? To your first draft, to a final finish. Can you just walk us through someone who is starting to write, maybe who has wrote several things, but just learning to expand on how-tos?
Absolutely going back to the outline, because that was my first mistake too, is writing so much and, without direction. And it was hard to go back and rewrite. So instead of now just editing portions of it, now I gotta rewrite the entire thing, because the more you read it and the more you edit, you will find loopholes that you won't have if you have your outline. It's just so important. I feel like laying down the foundation is the biggest thing. Like sometimes, probably will get tempted. Oh, you get that burst of inspiration, you just type away, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, I think you will save so much more time, and you will just have all your thoughts more coherent, and it won't even escape. Something we get that idea and then it suddenly escapes us. And if you write it all down, that's what it is. And then from there, from your outline, I will do my characters next, is at least for me. So after all the outline, how I want the story to go, and then because from there I can see which are my necessary characters in that's going to fill in everything. And then so that's what's next, and I flesh out the characters. Who are they? I know it sounds so tedious, but when you know your characters inside out, almost, it flows better. It's like it's harder to have a writer's block, because then it almost like they take a life on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you writing out like a bio of the character? This is who they are. This is their quirks. This is what they're good at. Oh, you are, eh?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So even down to, maybe what's her favorite color, even music, because that kind of goes in their personality, because then you know how they react to certain things. And it just makes it easier when you're writing, this character is passive aggressive, or this character is just super blunt. And then you see how it naturally falls into place, how they would both interact, as opposed to like you're not sure, and then you're typing out this scene with these two characters, not knowing them. So how is that going to go?
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you do any research in regards to, after you write, do you actually check like factual stuff, or, maybe I'm using this building, what's the proper name of this building and this geolocation? And so how much research do you actually put in after?
So it depends on what I'm writing. So right now, oh my gosh, I've been trying to finish this mafia-inspired novel. That one needed a lot of research, a lot. Like I read books about the mafia in and out, and because it will kind of have a spin in the modern world. Now, they're not as rampant nowadays, right? They're not out in the open.
They're behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And just pulling the strings. So I kind of had to do that and read a lot into that. But at the same time, I had to give myself grace, because this is still just a fantasy world. It's not, I'm not claiming it's a biography or inspired by true events and things like that. So I feel like to an extent, yes, I want to make sure that I'm talking about factual stuff, in a sense that, okay, this is how it goes. This is their hierarchy. This is how usually they do things, and what's their reach, the extent of it. But then there's also the fantasy aspects.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, Dianne, let's go back into carving our own spot and, making our own opportunities. So if there are no opportunities, how does someone create their own opportunities instead? Taking a different perspective, right? So, hey, instead of saying there's no money or there's no projects for this, do you have any thoughts on how we can carve out our own spot and make our own projects and fund our own projects?
So there are a lot of funding available, although they're very competitive. I feel like, grant writing itself is a whole nother thing. But there are readily available funds and grants out there that thankfully support, really diverse folks. But I think, we were talking about how usually it's a wider cast net, that it's for the entire BIPOC, and sometimes there's just specifically for Indigenous and specifically for Black creators, but nothing for Asian. So that's where it gets tough. But as far as creating our own stuff, so how we got that started is, band together with like-minded people who wants to create and put themselves out there, and start with something small, I would say. And once because my collaborators to this day are the same ones that I've been collaborating with when I started 2017. So it's like finding your own people and building each other up. Although I understand, like, with funds, limited funds, it's hard to create something that would maybe go beyond film festivals and such. It's very rare. You've spoken to Edmonton, and they did Skinamarink here. It's just for $15K, and that's amazing. So things like that, I feel like we have to look at every possible avenue, because, most of the odds are against us. That social media nowadays is a very powerful tool. We could use that to our advantage. And you mentioned about creating a collective. I've been wanting to create a collective. I just don't know where to start, because CAA and AFA, they even give out funding to foster these nonprofit collectives and such. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Apocalypse Productions.
No.
So they're also Asian creators, and we've been talking about, like, how do we get together? And right now we're in the idea stage. We don't know how to expand on that yet. But yeah, I think to begin with, to create our own opportunities, really, is we can't do it alone. We can't do it ourselves. We have to find our people who has the same goals as us, really, to get anywhere.
Let's talk about gatekeeping. Okay. And I know it's especially in this industry, when you're trying to seek out a mentor or something, or even just joining a bunch of Facebook groups, and I don't know if you're like me, but I kind of just read comments and people's posts, and I'm just like, there's a lot of, I feel like, gatekeeping when it comes to information, when it comes to funding. And I get it, but I don't get it. Can you explain to me what your thoughts and what your experiences are with that?
Yeah, so I know what groups you're talking about. I think it's the same thing that I said, that it's the people that you end up keeping. But the people in those groups, a lot of them are very helpful, but the loud ones are the ones that aren't. Unfortunately, it's the loud ones that kind of discourage, just the new up and coming people. Because a bunch of the people that are actually, how do I put this? Okay. The people who are actually doing something and making a difference, they're not busy tearing anyone else down. If you notice, there would be the usual names that would come up, and they're always trying to just not even offer anything and just shut down, just the newbies that come in, and they're just like, nope, you got to be doing this, because that's what I've been told. That when I was starting, I won't name names, but he's a known veteran director here locally, who's worked with, no, I'm not going to name companies, but he's worked with a lot of stuff. He told me basically, you know what? I was trying to approach him to be my mentor as a director, and he goes, Dianne, just sit and look pretty. It was so archaic. I could not believe that I was sitting across from him, and he just told me that. I'm like, are you stuck in the 50s or something? He's like, just sit and look pretty, do what you're good at. I'm like, this is insane. So I totally get what you're saying. And fortunately, after that, I was able to find mentors. It's a trial and error. You'd meet people who were, great at what they do, that maybe, it's nothing personal. They're just too busy and they don't have time to mentor you and things like that. But again, so far, maybe I've just been incredibly lucky. The ones that I've met with are just so receptive, and they're like, email me anytime, message me anytime if you have any questions, except for that one. Except for that one. But after that, I think I learned what to look for, watch out for.
Yeah.
And it's generally Oh no, that's gonna be too controversial for a story. I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, I just know what to stay away from. I guess I'm gonna leave it at that.
No, fair enough. No, fair enough. And I guess just on a high level, like, why do you think people gatekeep? Like, what are the main reasons?
I feel like, okay, this is what people who mentored me afterwards told me. So I told them about that director, and they said they're stuck in the old ways, that they want you to pay your dues like they did. Because I suppose it is quite, it is a digital age, so it's much easier in a way to record your own stuff, get your stuff out there. Even social media, right? So I feel like in a way maybe he was feeling like, hey, I did way more work than you. Why do you get to do this right away? Why are you getting this much funding? These connections when I had years of experience and I'm still like doing this. I think it's that they're afraid of change, and people surpassing them really is what I keep thinking. Whenever people gatekeep, they just don't want to, that saying, oh, they'll support you as long as you don't surpass them.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. I think it's that. It's almost as if they want you to do good, but not better than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's my experience.
Yeah, I'll mentor you, but you got to stay below me.
Yes, that exactly. Like it's almost like, how dare you? Okay, another example is oh my goodness, yeah, not naming names again and not naming the festival, but when I first committed to becoming an actor again, or at least going back to it, and I signed with an agent, I was excited. So I announced it on Facebook, because it's mostly really my family, that's seeing that. And then I have film friends. So I said that, and then someone commented, ooh, now I gotta take down that post. Say someone might go back and look at who it is. But someone commented and said, why do you want to be a writer, director, producer, actor? Pick one, just pick one, she tells me. And I was like, no, I'd love to dip my toes in everything, like especially in a smaller industry like in Alberta. There's plenty of openings and chances for you to try anything and everything. We've seen short films where there's like just two people or even a one-man show, right? But no, she was adamant. She's like, pick one. I'm like, no, I would like to try it all. And she goes, you will never be good at anything if you don't stick to one. And then basically it ended with her private messaging me and saying, stay in your lane, pick one. Wow. Pick one lane, stay in your lane. And I think that's what it is, because they get intimidated that, oh, you're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing so much stuff, and they don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of not rough, but it really says something about a person, an individual. And, I can see where that individual may be coming from. If you you could be a jack of all trades or master of none, but often better than master of one is the saying. But, what did they say? Riches are in the niches. Niches, and I'm just like, really? Is it really though? Because one of my I take a lot of inspiration from Donald Glover, the guy from Community, the guy who This Is America, that guy, and he does everything, and he doesn't give a about it, right? Like he'll write, produce, act, and he's music, and he's just a creator. He just wants to create, and I find that really inspiring. And I'm just like, yeah, why should I just really pick one?
For sure.
And people have different phases in life as well too. Like they might be like, hey, look, I really want to make music. That might last for a couple of years. It might last, maybe their entire life. But hey, maybe for 3 years, I want to make music. Okay, now, interests change. People grow up. Their mindset changes. And I'm like, for me, it's go out and get it. Your time is short. Go out and experience it. Give it a shot and give it your best shot. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it interests you,
exactly.
Awesome, right? And then you're expanding your knowledge as well too, and your experience. So if someone down the road, say for example, if you're a script writer and you were doing it for 5-10 years and then you stop for whatever reason. But if someone's to come up to you, 5 years after that phase in your life, you can speak to that experience. You can speak to, what you've done, and how you've done it. And I just think it's just better for your overall mindset, just to keep learning, keep growing, and you don't have to stay stuck there.
Exactly. But we were also talking about opening our own opportunities. That's how you do it. Why limit yourself? Because if I just limited myself, if I listened and just, okay, I'm just going to be a writer, period, or a director, period. Well, what am I going to be doing? Just corporate videos, right? If I just stuck to just acting, well, what then? And I won't be able to direct and write all those projects. And so it's limiting ourselves. It's just, I don't believe in it. If you're able to do it and, you have passion for it, why not? At the end of the day, you're living your life, not them.
Yeah.
So it's all for you.
So if I may ask, whatever became of that private message of stay in your lane?
Yeah. So I said, again, it's hard to burn bridges in this industry. So I said, thank you for your advice. I appreciate it. But I believe, I'm a firm believer of just going after what I would like to do in life, and I want to try it out at least once. And to the same tune of what you said, if it fails, then it fails. At least I tried it. There's not going to be this what if. Oh, what if I tried that many years ago and then I could have done this? No, at least I know.
And I guess that concept of, and I just want to put it out there for the viewers, because it really is a mindset thing. The term failure has a negative connotation. And for me personally, I'd like to change that, because it really is not failure. You look at any successful person, they've tried 100 things and they just modified every time they've tried until, they just blew up. So, like, guys out there listening, it's not failure, it's learning experiences. It might be very expensive in regards to like time or money, but nonetheless, it's a learning experience that grows you as an individual, right? And you can only you only have so much time to grow in this lifetime, right? So,
I love that. Yeah.
Make the best out of it. Be the best person you can be. Be the light out there. And I really think creativity and creation is really important to someone's mental health and emotional health as well too. If you're stuck, and maybe you agree, or maybe you can comment on this, but if you're stuck doing the same thing over and over, how do you stay creative? How can you be creative? How can you be a creator in this life that you call, right? Like even here right now, like the energy you put in and the energy you put out in the world really affects others out there, right? And I'm a true believer of what you put out there is what you get back in. And so if you're always negative and you're always looking at, for the worst in people as well, you're going to attract that, and you're just going to see that all around you instead of the best of people and really being a contributor in the world. Maybe that's crazy. I don't know.
No, absolutely. I agree. Even with the paths that you're talking about, I mean, there's not one set of paths too, right? Like whatever worked for me and what might not would work for someone else. So all these things, and this is for your listeners, all these things just take into account, but just because something doesn't work out for you doesn't mean you're a failure. And I love what you said. Yeah, it's not a failure. It's just a setback. It's a minor setback, and just tweak it and try a different one, right?
Yeah.
I really like that. And again, what I did for me, it might not work for someone, but that doesn't mean they won't flourish in other things.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, TIFF delegate. Can you explain to people what is the TIFF delegate and how that experience has, what did you learn from that experience and what did you take out of it?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so TIFF delegate, it's through BIPOC Film and TV, and I had to pitch the feature that I was just talking about earlier, and it's so I can meet mentors and industry professionals and talk to them about it, possibly, make connections and networking. It was crazy. It was my first time in TIFF. It was my first time because, again, unfortunately, this imposter syndrome still nags at me. And so I just didn't feel like I was ever good enough to even submit my stuff there. And that year I was like, F it. Just send it. And to my surprise, I was picked. And oh my goodness, how do I even begin to explain? It was surreal. I was there, but I was having an out-of-body experience, meeting all these people and just producers and executive producers, and they all have such nice things to say and just nothing but encouragement. And I think I would just like to quickly circle back on that, you know, people who were doing stuff were already successful. They never tear anyone down. They don't gatekeep. They help you. They kept giving me resources. They kept referring people to me and, oh, hey, you know what? Who's going to be good for you to mentor you? So and so. And I feel like that's just what you should strive for. Like once you're there, all these successful people, I've never met one who's just unwilling to even help, someone who's so eager to learn and just receptive of all this in the industry. And honestly, you know, I must have dissociated a lot of the times there because it's just, I can't believe, you know, I've just heard about you. I've been watching your movie and you're here talking to me and you're telling me that you love my stuff and that you're going to watch out. And you know what? A couple of them still email and I can still email them and send them, oh, hey, you know, I'll be in Toronto this weekend and such. And they're like, yeah, let's have coffee. Let's talk about what you're doing. And they give advice. And I love that. I think that for anyone listening to this, you know, just, again, don't stop at anything. If I listen to all the naysayers, I won't even be a TIFF. And, you know, that experience changed my view in everything because everything that was in our head, we were talking about just getting out of our heads. It just validated all the doubts. It's like, nope. None of that is real. Your dreams are valid. Go for it.
So you mentioned something, and I believe everyone suffers from it, is the term imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, like being a TIFF delegate and feeling the imposter syndrome, that term, like I feel it every day. And, you know, you're your worst enemy and you get in your own head.
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone to get, you know, in regards to getting over imposter syndrome and just keep moving forward?
You know, and this is no joke, is go to therapy. Like it's doesn't, I think there's a negative connotation about therapy. You know, when you say, oh, you're in therapy, oh my gosh, something's wrong with you. No, it's very healthy. You talk about these things and honestly, it's helping me. My therapist is equipping me with tools, how to handle these things when I start feeling them, because 99% of the time, it's unfounded doubts and worries and such. So that's, I would say, you know, that's very helpful. Or even if you don't want to go to therapy, maybe have someone that you completely trust and you can just speak about on this and express all of it, because it's very important that someone else is there to kind of validate that, you know what, you're enough. Whatever you're worried about isn't even real. And again, when I was there in the room full of people that I felt I didn't belong in, and they were also welcoming, like, no, you're here, you're with us. Like,
yeah,
don't stop thinking that. Sometimes we need that. We need someone else, like an outside voice to tell us that. And on ourselves. So what works for me, again, I think I've mentioned earlier, is journaling, just being clear about goals. And what I've learned with goals is it's great to have these big goals, but also have attainable goals. So I usually have short-term goals and long-term ones, because sometimes what we think is, you know, this is our end goal. And because it's so far ahead, and even though we're chipping at it and we're making all these progress, it seems like we're not, because it's such a big goal. So it's really important to have these points of, okay, small goal number 1 is finish your writing. Small goal number 2, submit it somewhere. Small goal number 3, you know, find a mentor, even a writing group, something like that, who can beta read your stuff. And then you will slowly get to that big goal. And that helped me out a lot. And because when I'm getting doubts, I look at my notebook and it's like, hey, I've already done these. I've checked out these goals. And for this year, at the beginning of the year, I try to have all those laid out. I'm like, no, I'm doing fine. Stop. Whatever doubts is creeping again. No, you're doing fine. And it's just I'm such a visual person too. So seeing it rather than thinking it, it's like, okay, I'm good. I'm doing good. So I think that would, if anyone would like to just a little bit to help get them out of that. Again, as creatives, it's hard not to. Yeah. Right? We're so critical of ourselves. Yeah, definitely write down your small goals. And I just know it's impossible that we're not ticking off even the small ones. Yeah.
One thing that you brought up, like mentorship is really important. How important, or what is your advice to someone who needs to just put themselves, I guess, networking with people in the industry at all different levels? What's your thoughts on that, and what's your approach?
So I am a very introverted person. I don't know why I chose a very extroverted industry. So I get such, people anxiety. I love talking to film people because, just when the energy is suddenly there and you just have so much to talk about. But going into it, I'm always like, oh my God, there's so many people. And I guess my approach would be just be prepared too. For something like Banff World Media, they always, most festivals too, they would post who's coming, which speaker is going to be on what and who's going to be here. And you'll see pretty much a list of the delegates as well. So you can prepare yourself who you want to talk to, who you want to network with. It doesn't hurt to read about them, research their work. So there's something to kind of go off on as well. And really, if you're coming in with your project, be solid about it. The biggest thing I've learned the first time I got to Banff World Media was through, I got through the Diversity of Voices with Netflix, and my mentor was Court Lane, who was then with Marvel Entertainment. So I almost backed out because, again, I was doubting myself. I'm like, no way is like a Marvel guy gonna be my mentor, But then I just worked. I just focused my energy on completing my deck, my pitch deck, fleshed it out. The perfect pitch of, what they say, that your elevator pitch, you should be able to say everything within 30 seconds. And it's practice. It's really practice too. Public speaking is practice, right? So that's, so research, take your time and practice with networking, because especially if you're like me, you're not, naturally a very outgoing person. It can be daunting because everyone's there to network. Everyone's there. And again, if we get out of our heads and just go, everyone's here for the same reason as you. They're here just like you, with their projects, and it's almost like, oh yeah, hey, we're all the same. We're creatives, and we just want to create. We're almost like this one big happy family, almost. Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that you're an introvert.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's what people say too. They're like, no, I'm really good at masking. Yeah. But no, it's like I love talking to film people, but if say we weren't here to talk on your podcast and we're outside, I'd probably be more reserved. Yeah, reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all good. All good. What's your experience in regards to, maybe distribution or sales in regards to a finished project? Do you have any experience in that?
That is very tough. I don't have experience being a distributor, but I've had pitched many projects for that. So I feel like that is the hardest part of the stage of filmmaking, really, if we're going to be honest, is someone who will believe in your project and spend on it, take time on it.
Yeah,
to get it out there.
So where do you find these distributors or even making the time to pitch or even speak with them? Like, do you have a process? Do you have a resource on how to reach out, or any advice for someone who has a finished project and now they're just sitting on it?
Film festivals are the biggest thing, because you know, a lot of them, even though you can find their information readily available online, they won't take unsolicited pitches and things like that. So it is film festivals that they actually go to, and they're there. Even networking events. There's so many. There's a big one coming up in Calgary, I think end of October, and they're flying in different producers, agents from Toronto and Vancouver. So see, just watch out for, watch out for events like that, because that's your big opportunity. Like, those people are there for that. And for me, I guess just having gone through TELUS STORYHIVE, so now there's the TELUS Optic that's always open for that. TELUS Originals as well. You know, be a member of AMPIA. They give you resources like that as well. Even DOC Alberta for documentaries. They have a list of distributors that they are already working with, or you know, sometimes they'd be like, oh yeah, this distributor is maybe looking for this type of project and this is what they want to produce. Someone like CBC, they take open pitches, so CBC is great for that.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have all their information online. So they have certain departments if you're, you know, scripted, unscripted, things like that. So they have it there. Yeah, so if for avenues like that, absolutely send it, right? You never know, and they will give you feedback. I mean, not super detailed feedback, but at least they will tell you that, okay, maybe this is what they're looking for right now, and you can tailor your pitch to that.
Gotcha. Well, that's really good to know. You know, there's the whole aspect of the pre-production side of things. So the pre-planning, which is like an entity of itself, like a big undertaking. Even the production side, day of shooting could be day of, a week of shooting or whatever, and then the post-production, and then there's the sales and marketing side of thing, because you know, there's all these different things you need to do prior to, what do you do with the end product? And, you know, I've seen a lot of people create the end product, and then it's very disheartening that after they've created it, it just sits there, and it stops them from going back and creating again. So I think the whole like sales and marketing, or even trying to break even, whether it's crowdfunding or whatever it is, I think, you know, someone needs to make money, even just break even, just so they can keep going, because you still have to feed yourself. You still have to feed the crew.
Absolutely.
Even if it is just, some kind of minimal stuff. And I see a lot of things on Facebook where people are asking to, work on passion projects and all that fun stuff. And I see them getting torn up in the comments. People shouldn't be working for free.
Yeah.
Kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
So yes and no. To an extent, I believe I would still work and collaborate creatively, with people, especially if it's something like it's a project that I also believe in. So I would help out. And I just did that recently for a short, and this guy, I've known him quite a bit, and he's like, oh yeah, do you want to just do this one role really quick? I'm like, yeah, why not? But I do understand as well what people are saying, that as creatives, we are probably the only industry where people would say, oh yeah, I'm going to give you exposure bucks, right? Or IMDb credit. And it's just not right. While I understand, beginning, and again, I think that's what we were talking about earlier, finding your people. And because when we did my short film, that was out of pocket for everyone. And it wasn't until, we got it out to film festivals and it won stuff, and we kind of just like split it between us, whatever the wins were. So I get both sides of the fence. Just I feel like a lot of the people that post on those groups to keep doing it again and again.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be a point where you should also, if you're not taking a risk for your own project, who else is going to believe in it too?
Yeah.
Because I even know a producer director who, one of the events that I've been to, and he's talked about how he had to put a second mortgage on his house to fund his first feature.
Yeah.
Because he was also stuck. No one was giving him funding. So he did it himself. He went and did it himself. And you know what? That got him, because he finished that got him into DGC, which is the Directors Guild of Canada. And yeah, from there, it was just an upward trajectory. So I think we do have to take risks. And I know it's hard. It's incredibly hard. But, even with crowdfunding, if I love supporting crowdfunding, but if it's also constantly just that, it's like there becomes a point where you got to show people as well, like what you're worth, what you're made of as well. And then people will start supporting you, because support doesn't happen overnight. We got to see, okay, they've been working on this for how long, and this is what their maybe their career looks like, and people start believing in that. Like, they do look into that.
Your philosophy of don't wish, just act is inspiring. How do you implement that mindset? Any advice for individuals?
Yeah, so how I do that is, if I just kept wishing, nothing's going to happen. I know sometimes you go, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But you can't just sit on your... wait, let me rephrase that. You can't... You can't just sit and wait for things to come to you. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like we were saying earlier, everything happens for a reason, but you also got to put work into that. So that's where the do part of it comes from, because you can keep wishing that this is what you want to do, but if you're also not laying down the foundation and, helping yourself, building yourself this platform, then there's nothing for it to fall back on. So do it. Whenever I say, oh, I want to write something about this. Hey, why don't I? Why don't I write something about it? Let me start it like today. And same thing with, hey, when I said that I want to be, I want to go back into acting, my first step was, okay, I'll find an agent. And that's my first thing. Because again, nothing's going to happen for me if you don't put the action to it. And I guess that's just follow through with actions. Like whatever you want, make it happen. It's up to you. It's up to us to make it happen.
Yeah, gotcha. What's a piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Is to not listen to anyone else in regards to what I would like to be in life and my dream. And it's not, because I put it on hold for the longest time, listening, saying that it's not a respectable industry, or it's not a profitable industry. It's not, on one end, I understand, parents look out for you and they want you to succeed in life. So maybe they're thinking about, is that profitable? And whatever, set you up in life. But I think that the biggest thing is to, your soul, your creative soul. And I would say, don't listen to them and say that that's a stupid dream. That's like a baseless dream. Because again, when I was rejected from Glee Club, they basically said to me, see, you couldn't even make it in Glee Club. So like, that's a stupid dream. And I kept that in me for how many years, right? Up until I did the hosting. It's like, hey, you can actually get back into this kind of thing. So just keep believing. It's so cliche, but really keep believing. I'm going to tell my younger self, keep believing.
Dianne, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Very informative and very appreciative of just your insights and experience and sharing it with our viewers. How can people find you, and where do they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Dianne Wulf, and my website, diannewulf.com. Although I don't post a lot, I sort of post back to back and then disappear for like months at a time. But yeah, they can follow me there.
Yeah. And where can they find some of your work?
They're on TELUS Optic, TELUS Originals, soon on Apple, somewhere on Tubi, Hallmark, Lifetime. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Frame by Frame and leave us a review. You can follow Dianne's work and her updates on her IMDb, Instagram at Dianne Wulf, and on her website, diannewulf.com. Thank you for tuning in to Frame by Frame. We'll see you guys on the next one.